Welcome to Let's Talk About It Tuesdays, where I share conversations that I have with successful women, all answering the same questions. And then we simply chat it up a bit. You get to be a fly on the wall in these conversations. I have a hearty chat with Monique Patton today. A recent psychology graduate, lifelong learner, and midlife explorer, she's on a mission to create unfiltered conversations about women's wellness, sex, aging, and self-reclamation. Monique is an example of what out-of-the-box success can look like. Our conversation goes wonderfully rogue, and we talk about sexual health for quality of life. Here's my chat with Monique. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. How has your morning been? Anything wild and exciting happening?
No, no.
Good. Sometimes that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, I will dive in with our first question of our chat together, and that is, what is quality of life to you?
Well, I was thinking about this question, and for me, I think a lot of people think about, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is, the basic needs, food, shelter, security,
Yeah.
and they would be right. Absolutely, right? But those are basic needs, and if we are talking about subjective quality of life, then we really have to, in my opinion, look at, the life stages. And what I mean by that is they shift the meaning of quality of life. Where
Yeah.
are you hormonally, emotionally, relationally? Because, as a 51-year-old woman, it looks way different than it did when I was 20, right?
Yeah.
And so, for me now, quality of life really embodies being present, having that presence, and having connection, whether that's with myself. Well, that's number one. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
quality of life is having that presence and connection with Monique. Then number two, of course, the people we care about in our lives. And then sometimes even a stranger for me. If I can be present and connect with a stranger, that can give great meaning and quality to our lives.
Mm.
And that wasn't always the case for me because I grew up in a very traumatic home. My parents were severe alcoholics. And I kind of want to give you the background here.
Give
Um,
it. Come on, that's what we're here for.
uh, Severe alcoholics and, weekly domestic violence. And so, yeah. But I've done a lot of healing and it's taken a lot of courage. Now I'm going to tear up. And this is so meaningful for me because uh, it's taken a long time to
Yeah.
heal from this. And the reason why quality of life for me is presence and connection is because when I was a little girl, I didn't have that. I, because of the trauma and the experiences I lived through, I one of the coping strategies for me was disassociation.
Yeah.
And so I have huge blocks of memory loss. And most of the memories I have involve basically think of it as like you're watching a movie and I'm up here, right?
Yeah.
Watching what's happening to that little girl.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because of that coping strategy, I wasn't in my body.
Right. Right.
And I wasn't connected. And I didn't allow myself to feel feelings. I didn't allow myself that safety of being me.
Well,
And
and I want to, yeah, offer and interject as well. It probably wasn't safe to do that.
no.
So your awareness and sharing your awareness on this is so important and so profound. And I thank you for going right there. And no, I do, because that's partly why we're here, is to talk about things. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate the differentiation of certain times in our life, quality of life means different things. In our 20s, we may not have had the capacity or the ability or even care about things in the way that we care about them now because we don't know for, whatever reasons. But I really appreciate that this is a journey and you are expressing that in a way that equates to your quality of life.
Well, absolutely. And so, having this conversation is so important for so many women. And the stage of life that I'm in is, I like to call it my midlife era, right? And so,
Is that instead of your, it was like hot girl summer, it's your midlife era? Is that,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's my
Oh
midlife
my gosh,
era.
I sound so old saying that.
Hey, hey, I could still be hot girl
Yes,
summer.
you can. Yes, we can.
And so, you know, drawing on that disassociation and not being in my body, I've been able to come back into my body. And
Hmm.
this has taken me years. And
Hmm.
so, I am a recent graduate, as you know, from,
Congratulations.
I know, Cal State University Fullerton, and my bachelor's is in psychology. And part of the reason why I went back to school at this later stage in life was because I wanted to understand, why
Yeah.
do we do the things that we do? Why do people or children of severe trauma disassociate? And why did I allow that disassociation to continue through most of my adult life? Literally just out of my body. Anytime something stressful came along, whoop, there it go. And it literally, I would walk around feeling like I was in a fog. And finally, I went to therapy, went back to school, the psychology, and did a lot of the really hard work. So now reclaiming that presence for me
Beautiful.
is,
Cool.
being able to stay inside this body of mine, which I treasure so much. Um, uh, not leaving my body just means everything to me. To be able to feel, to be able to be present and connect, whether it's the good crap, I almost said the other word, the good stuff,
You
or
meant shit? You almost said shit?
yeah,
Okay.
the good shit or the bad shit, right? You need to look at both, and both add so much value
Yeah.
to our lives, right? And so being home in my body and in this space, for me, it's like, connection, intimacy, and pleasure are
Yeah.
not optional. Not optional.
Yeah. And so I have a kind of similar but different experience and journey with quality of life. A lot of it too was me taking a look at how did I get here? What am I doing? What's working and not working? And I too have a very traumatic upbringing and abuse in my history. And I have seen just kind of with the work that I've done with myself and other people that it all comes out in us differently. For me, for example, I don't necessarily disassociate. I have been known to hyper focus. How do I fix this? What am I doing? How can I change this? How can I be aware of this? How can I be, and to a fault, to where the point where I'm in a pretzel and everybody else is fine around me doing their thing. And, when we talk about quality of life and the non-negotiables, that has changed over the years for me. Before we jump into some other things, I would love to hear about, you've had this beautiful, I call it beautiful now. We both know it was hard. It was not easy. It was a lot of work, and there was a lot of roller coaster highs and lows. And to get to the point where we can, be able to say, I am living in a form of quality of life, and I'm also a work in progress.
Mhm.
Where are you challenged to incorporate quality of life?
Well, very challenged. And I resonate so much with your pretzel, right? Because I am a perfectionist.
Mm,
And so for me, you know, the challenge is slowing down my brain. I'm an overthinker. I overthink everything. And in order to get some of the attention that I could from my grown-ups, my parents. I thought perfection was the way to get praise, to get love, to have acceptance, right? And so that is my daily battle. And, being able to slow down this mind of mine is my biggest challenge. I'm a people pleaser, perfectionist to the T. And I've had to really, really struggle and fight the cruel inner talk that goes on in my life in here. And so I would say that is my biggest challenge. And, I think like a lot of women, letting myself want and feel, and not only just in daily life, taking up space in my own space and space in the world, but also, I want to go to the meat of what I wanted to talk about with you today,
Let's
because
do it.
part of it,
Yeah.
and I don't want this to come off like I'm just going to dive in, but let's do it.
We're in it. Let's do it. Right,
Because
everybody? We're doing it. Let's do it.
we're doing it. And so for me, I guess what I really want to say too is, we live in a culture where we women have really been repressed sexually. We have been shamed for wanting our own pleasure. And so when I went back to school, I wanted to become, and that ultimately is still my goal, a sex therapist. So part of my quality of life is that, because, our subconscious minds are wired for survival and reproduction, right? And so sex is, deeply woven into all of our behaviors. And so, an orgasm is one of the greatest things our bodies can experience. And especially when you experience them with somebody you truly care about, right? And you love. And it's brutally intimate, brutally, connected. And it provides this pleasure that is healthy and healing for our bodies when done appropriately. I do want to say that to all the
Yeah, I know,
people.
because you said the word brutally, and I'm like, okay, so let's maybe, is there another word that we could use?
Uh,
Only say that because there are some of us, myself included, I was sexually abused as a child. And so
yeah,
to associate brutal with sex is
yeah.
kind of, it's a word of freedom. And,
Yes. And well, let me clarify, because I didn't say brutal sex. I said brutally
that's true.
honest. I said brutally intimate.
Intimate. Yes,
Right?
yes, yes.
Yes.
When we're talking about
Yes.
sex and having the word brutal, I just want to make sure that we're clarifying.
Absolutely.
I don't
And
want to
that,
trigger anybody.
no,
I want this conversation to be something that is ongoing and not something like
absolutely.
what she said,
Ah,
he said.
no, no. And that's why I said, of course, in the most
Yeah.
safest, healthiest, consensual way
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where it
Great. Yeah.
becomes absolutely beautiful. And so, it's deeply human, it's biologically rooted, it's research back to add to our quality of life, which is why I want to bring it up here, because I feel you know, like I said, this culture has dismissed female pleasure for so long, and it's through shame, through stigma, and through silence. And then, let's just face it too, Chelsea, it's like we work, we're a wife, or maybe we're single, maybe, we're just busy. Also, for a lot of, we're just surviving day to day, right?
Yeah.
And so the education system all over the world doesn't talk about it,
Yeah.
doesn't talk about correct anatomy, doesn't talk about pleasure at all. Places like France and Sweden, they do teach students, of course, about STD protection and unintended pregnancies, but they don't really talk enough about how important pleasure is. And the research says that the more pleasurable sex is, it improves our subjective well-being and overall quality of life. There was another study done that talked about satisfying sex adding to successful aging and therefore quality of life. Even masturbation can reset our nervous system, affirm embodiment, and increase our joy, which again, what does that do? Ups our quality of
Raise
life.
our quality of life. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and yes. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking there's so many ways in which we have been trained. I'll just say trained because the messages are nonstop for us as females and people who identify as females from the very beginning until now, right? And that people are assessing our bodies, how we're presenting ourselves, what we should do, what we shouldn't do, whether we're in a religious or non-religious upbringing. There are two different standards for men and for women about sex. And even when we are talking about, sex being something that you explore in your younger years and a teenager, there's still a lot of parameters of like, well, don't get pregnant. Well, who's getting us pregnant? That's a whole nother story. It's not like I can't do it by myself, you know. And so just some of those mindsets and those constructs are so ingrained in us. And I'm really all about taking a look at why we're believing what we're believing and what are we doing with it. And and reframing things as women that works for us. And that's going to require some buy-in from the people around us. But if we don't start with us, it's not going to start. Nothing's going to shift. And that's what I love about this conversation is that like we're talking about masturbation and orgasms and sexual health. Let's do it.
Well, because here's the thing. You hit the nail on the head. Our culture from very little, oh, girls, sit with your legs crossed. Don't anybody want to see your private parts or, oh, boys are just boys. Boys are going to touch themselves, but girls, oh, oh no, that's inappropriate, unacceptable, all we're taught from so little.
Right.
And
Sorry to interrupt you, all while we're sexualized.
absolutely.
So it's just such an unequated
Absolutely.
problem.
Absolutely. And, the lack of anatomy education, like I didn't know this. Hopefully we can talk about this. I didn't know how big the clitoris was.
Yeah.
It is 3.5 to 4 inches long and 2.5 inches wide.
Mm,
Now, I didn't learn that until my 40s.
yeah.
And that is huge. And it's the only organ in male or female bodies that is explicitly for pleasure, right? That it's the only reason why we have it.
Yeah.
Now, why aren't we
Got it.
taught that? Why aren't we? It's, unimaginable to me now. And when it increases our well-being, when it increases our quality of life, and this is not just, biological, but it is biological, right? It raises the hormones in our brains, oxytocin, dopamine, epinephrine, all these things, right? It is total body stress relief. It improves our sleep. It improves our cardiovascular health. It improves our depression levels. Speaking of that, I know we don't have a whole lot of, we could probably do a few
I
podcasts
know we
on this.
might do a part two.
Yeah. But I did some research on menopause and the effects of seminal fluid on the female anatomy. So when seminal fluid, semen, is absorbed through the vaginal wall, it has been shown to help or mitigate menopause symptoms It helps reduce inflammation in the vaginal walls. So like, when we get the dry vaginal dryness, it helps reduce those symptoms. It has its own biological chemistry that gets absorbed that can help uptick our own hormones,
Yeah.
which is amazing. It has been shown to lower depression levels in women. Now, here's the thing. You got to find someone who is willing to accommodate the seminal fluid.
A partner, yeah.
But it's
Mhm.
okay because, like I even mentioned earlier, masturbation alone helps us reduce the stress levels, sleep better, raise our own hormone levels to where, depression is lower, quality of life is heightened.
Yeah.
So, all of these things, right? But here's the key words that I really want to point out is pleasurable
Mm-hmm.
and satisfying.
Mm.
Now, I would like to make another point. When I was writing this paper, well, I wrote so many papers on sex, but
Well, your goal is to be a sex therapist, so I hope so. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So one of the papers I wrote was about the sex education in the United States, particularly, but also I compared it to the planet. And the one thing that is for sure is there is an orgasm gap. And the orgasm gap, again, is due to cultural ideologies, right? And, the shame, the stigma, the silence, and all of that. But when I was writing this paper, I was headed to the gym, Chelsea, and I'm like, there are over 8 billion people on this planet. 8 billion.
Mhm.
My guess is most of those came from a male orgasm. How many of those actually came from a female orgasm? Now, I'm going to tell you, my son, one of 8 billion, did not come from a female orgasm.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
It is something that we all need to reclaim.
Yeah.
It is not indulgent, it is a birthright for all of us females to enjoy our sexual encounters, our sexual experiences, whether solo or partnered. It doesn't matter, your orientation. You just enjoy either solo, which is always fun, but also partnered because it does bring that connection, that intimacy. Even in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, talks about
Mm-hmm.
relational aspects of our life. And it just adds to that in such an intimate way.
Yeah. Whew, hold on. I just gotta think about that for a second.
Well, sexuality is how we connect, how we bond. It can be very healing and very sacred
Yeah.
if you allow it to be, right? And open up, release the stigmas,
Mm-hmm.
be communicative about it with your partner, or even if you are doing this solo, explore, sensate, focus, Masters and Johnson. Uh, Explore your body, learn it.
Mm.
What does feel good to you? And how does it feel good to you? All of these things matter because it does add to our quality of life.
Absolutely. Thank you for being the voice of this. And my brain is just processing through all this to the point where I'm thinking, what do I say next? Because it's such good and meaty, like you're saying, you're ready for the meat, such good and meaty information to consider. Consider where we have been with our own messages. When you said 8 billion people in the world, and likely most of those came from a male orgasm, I offer every single one of them did. Well, because doesn't that equate to ejaculation?
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm going to offer there was some kind of pleasure coming from 50% whatever, whoever the participants were.
I mean, I suppose they could have taken taken the semen out surgically, or
I mean, that's so rare. I
yeah,
mean, I think it's rare. I don't know. Maybe that's happening and people aren't talking about it, but
yeah,
my understanding is there's one way to make a baby, and
yeah.
that involves two things. So, okay. And then the other thing I was thinking while you were saying that, it made me think about sex education. And I remember, I know we're a little bit, definitely behind the times, and we were raised in a time. I don't know if this was your experience. Sex education was, I don't know, it was fifth grade. We were separated from the boys, and the boys learned about their thing, and the girls learned about their thing. And I mean, what a way to stigmatize. And we learned about periods. I think they learned about boners. I know that's not the right word, but that's not the medically appropriate word. Like what's going to happen to you, and we learned about, oh, this is how to deal with getting your menstruation cycle, and it would have been so nice and would have been a great opportunity to remove that stigma if we were all in the same class about this is what's going to go on with your peers over here and your peers over there. I know we have a ways to go before we get to that, but again, it starts with us talking about it and hearing the information.
Absolutely. And I think that, a lot of the education systems have it wrong. My humble opinion, because a more comprehensive sexual education would lead to less curiosity too. I mean, just talking about, being, you know, a a teenager and having this pubescent mind, right? And you were just thinking, well, what does an erection look like? And what, all these things. And boys, same thing. What does a real pair of breasts look like, or whatever?
Yeah.
Had we had a more comprehensive education, we wouldn't have been so curious and maybe not have approached a sexual experience quite as quickly either, because you're not so like, ooh, show me yours, I'll show you mine. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Normalizing and not making everything about intercourse
yeah, yeah,
and sex, the act of
absolutely.
sex. Yes.
Absolutely. And, talking about the periods too, it brings us to, did we ever talk about menopause?
Never.
No. No. And that has been my brutal forefront here the last year and a half of my life, right? This whole menopause and this idea. I just want to, if we have time, I was sitting in class, right? And it was an anthropology class, a sexual behavior anthropology class. And this young student behind me says, ew, do 40-year-olds even have sex still?
I remember thinking that when I was younger, though, too. I'm like, you only get to a certain age and you stop having sex because, ew.
You're right. And I turned around and I said, excuse me, I'm 50 and I want to have sex every day. Every day, I want to have sex. I'm just being honest, right? And she goes, what, really? And the teacher kind of giggled and he goes, it's per person, right? It's everyone's libido levels are different and
Mhm.
valid, right? And so my point to this is menopause is not a pause in sex. It's not a pause in sex.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, remember, I brought up the fact that satisfying in sexual activity is linked to
Yeah.
successful aging.
Yeah.
People live longer because of this.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think too, I think it's important to offer that sometimes during these menopausal years, sexual experiences are more satisfying than they ever have been because we know our bodies more and we are potentially, hopefully, have grown into a position where we're inviting safer partners, safer experiences, and more intimate, in for lack of a better way of saying it, interactions, but and that again, that's something worth continuing a conversation on of, what is sex life like in menopause? And
Absolutely. Here's the other thing I want to add to what you just said is I think as women too, I don't know if it's thanks to menopause, but we are so much more open about saying, hey, this is what I like. I
Mhm.
think they call it, or remember my mom saying something like, when a woman gets long in the tooth, they get more honest. Have you ever heard that
I
saying?
have not, no.
We'll have to see if anybody who watches the
Yeah.
podcast knows this long in the
Let us
tooth
know.
statement. But anyway, we get more honest about it, and probably we've lived years and years and years without satisfying and pleasurable sexual experiences. And we're finally like, it's my turn.
Hmm.
I want to experience, if I'm going to do this, I want it my pleasurable way, my satisfying way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're not afraid to speak up anymore.
Well, and hopefully for some of the younger people that are experiencing this world, that their narrative is different, that
Mhm.
this starts happening earlier in life. They don't have to wait until they're in a place where their body feels like it's just completely falling apart and we don't know what's going on in here. And
Right.
and this can be something that is a different experience. I hope anybody who's listening, I would love to hear what you think about this conversation. Please comment. But
Yeah.
not only that, talk to somebody else about it. I have a girlfriend that is a lifelong girlfriend, and I can't tell you how many times we literally talk about what's going on, right? And I'm just going to kind of keep her story, but in ways of like, oh yeah, can you believe we're talking about this? This is awesome, and it's everything's on the table. We can talk about anything about. Did you have questions? And I mean, it's not us together. It's her partner or my partner type thing.
Yeah.
But because we never had that being brought up, and so hopefully younger people can start those conversations as well if they're not having them yet, with again really really making sure that I say safe people that are honoring to the conversation and that will validate an experience but also give voice to that doesn't sound healthy, like creating those kind of relationships that I mean, I'm going on a tangent now too, but creating those kind of relationships that offer good reflection and honest feedback and help us really to be our best and most healthy person.
Absolutely. And I'm starting my YouTube channel, as you know, too. But my target community will be 40 to 55-year-olds. And we will talk about all the stuff, menopause, breakups, relationships. If we need a bitch session, because that's also research backed, to
Oh,
make
can I be a guest
quality
on
of
your
life
channel?
go. Yes, absolutely. And just, I want these women from 40 to 55. I wish I knew at 40 some of the things I knew now. So let's share that. And then let's commiserate or share our joy or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Let's have this community to talk about all things midlife, menopause, a lot of people unfortunately getting a divorce, redating, the dating scene, or how about, life stages, empty nest. What does that feel like? Because I did go through that too. I have that lived experience as well. All the things. But yes, Chelsea, you're right. And I hope I and maybe one day I will do a outreach for the young women out there to advocate for them, to advocate for their voices to be heard, and absolutely to have the most safest, secure, most pleasurable and satisfying experience with their body that is consensual. And
Mhm.
because you're worth it. And because don't live another day or have another sexual experience where it isn't on the table for you to orgasm to,
Right.
because it's your birthright. And I want them to know that.
Yes. Right. And when you say birthright, I see my mind wandering and I'm like bringing it back to the point where you were saying when we're born with these organs, this is what we are born with. And therefore it is our birthright. It's nothing is within us that is for no reason.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I am a lifelong learner and curiosity rules the roost around here. Very curious. And I don't shame myself anymore for asking the big questions or thinking about sex, thinking about aging, thinking about these life stage identities, because I've done them, a lot of them. I've been a daughter, I've been a sister, I've been a wife, I've been a mother, I've been a best friend, I've been, an employee, all these things, right? I've been an empty nester. I am a divorcee. I am in my menopause era. So and by the way, menopause era, if anybody knows who Mary Claire Harbour is, she is a wonderful doctor who's advocating hugely for menopause treatment, HRT, all the things. And so she says menopause era, but I say midlife era.
Yes, yes. Okay, I love it. I this I'm stuttering. I think we're going to end up having a two-parter on this one because this was so good, and I want to make sure that everybody can hear all the points. If I don't end up doing this into two parts, then it's going to be a one long meaty one. And I say that because these these are not edited in conversations. This is what you all are seeing is the conversation that we're having. I don't go back and rearrange anything that anybody's saying or take anything out. And I love this. It makes me very hopeful that you and I met at a divine appointment, I call it, and that this conversation is one definitely worth having and definitely continuing, no, not only with us, but also outside of the YouTube world.
Absolutely. We could do a couple different podcasts, menopause. We could do a podcast about sex and aging successfully. We could do a podcast about just great sex, which
But I want to add on there, like when you don't have a partner,
yeah,
not
so
everybody always has a partner. And
no.
and this applies as just as important. I remember one time I was watching an Oprah and Dr. Oz was on there, and when he was in his era, he had this thing about how great orgasms are for our bodies. And one of the participants asked, so if you don't have a partner, is pleasuring yourself something that, is equivalent to what you're saying? And he gave this answer that didn't answer that question. And I remember going, that's not fair. Answer the question. He started talking about other things about the importance of orgasms that were with men. And so I'm with you
Well,
on all this.
I can sort of answer that question for you.
Okay.
Now, now masturbation or solo sex is wonderful for us. But the reason why partnered sex, and it doesn't matter your orientation, the reason why it is superior to masturbation is because of the connection,
Yep.
the bonding,
Yeah.
the intimacy, and that shared experience, right? But don't let that take away from solo masturbation because it also has huge benefits. And so, as a single woman, I partake often. And it's great for you, right? And
Many
it
levels.
does add to that quality of life. I mean, pleasure is pleasure, and our bodies are meant to experience that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for sharing all of this with us. And to a degree, I find myself thinking if anybody needed permission, this is your episode. Here's your permission to take away any of the shoulds or the judgments or the I don't know how to, explore and be curious and, find ways of incorporating this into our quality of life because mentally, physically, emotionally, biologically, it affects us.
Absolutely. All the things.
Yes. Well, thank
And
you.
stay curious. And
Yeah.
don't be shameful about being curious. I'm so proud of being curious. It's how you learn and have a better quality of life.
Yeah. Stay curious.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we're going to sign out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we will see you soon.
All right.
Next week, I talk with Annabelle Arias, a licensed clinical social worker and trauma coach. She helps others break through painful pasts to live in hopeful futures. And I love her heart.
But when you've been passed down a legacy that has been filled with trauma and negative beliefs and doubt and low confidence, you want to break that, right? And so now you're in this new phase of like, you're breaking legacy and creating a new one.
Next week is also the final episode of season 2. You are not going to want to miss it. I know, I always say that, but it's true. You're not going to want to miss it. I'm Chelsea. I'm here to help women build and incorporate quality of life into our everyday busy lives. See you next week.